What's going on, dudes? Nick here, RRGA Gaming, and welcome to another Server Owner Stories. Today, guys, I've got a story for you. This is the story about the time where our servers went down and we had no access to it, and we didn't have access to any backups. And this is kind of how the entire thing went down and kind of helped shape some of the stuff that we do now. Now, if you guys don't know, my name is Nick, or RGA Gaming. I run the mc.performium.net server, and we get roughly 1,500 to 2,000 new players a day, typically averaging around 10,000 players connecting to the server per day as well. So we get a lot of traffic, we get a lot of players, and we see a lot of unique stories, and this here is one of my stories. So the whole thing kind of begins late at night. It was a long day. I can't remember exactly what I was even working on that day. I'm pretty sure it was actually a stream day as well, because I remember streaming, and while I was streaming, there was a couple people in chat that were saying that Performium was down, and I was like, I kind of glanced at it. And a lot of people like to troll me. They really do. A lot of people love to mess with me. It's probably because I troll so many people all the time. And I just kind of looked at it. I'm like, okay, it's probably, there's probably a server down. Sometimes when a server goes down, people will be like, oh, Performium's down. And I log on to it, and it's like, oh, no. Just a single server is just restarting, guys. It's not a big deal. So I kind of figured that's what was happening, and I was streaming. I mean, honestly, yeah, I probably could have ended the stream, but honestly, I thought it wasn't a big deal, so I just kept on streaming. And when I got done, I had a few DMs from some of my staff. So then I was like, oh, okay, this is apparently a real issue, because it kind of confirmed that, okay, well, it's not just a couple random people in chat doing this. The server's actually having issues. So I went over to Minecraft, I launched it, and I tried connecting to the server, and the server list was showing that the servers were online. So I was like, okay, what the heck is going on here? So I'm like, okay, the bungees are up. Let me just try to connect to it, and then I tried to connect, and it was not letting me in. So I'm like, oh, okay, maybe the hubs are down. Maybe something happened where the hubs got flooded. Maybe there was something going on with them. So I tried to log into our management panel, and I'm not able to log into it. So I'm like, this is kind of awkward. So I'm like, okay, well, next action that I could try to take is to connect to the servers that are running all the different hubs. So I start trying to log into the servers, and the same sort of thing happens. I'm like, it's not letting me connect. It's saying failed to connect. So I'm like, oh crap. Did I like, the first thing going through my mind is like, did I forget to pay the server bills or something? Like, at the time I'm like, I don't know what's going on here. So I log into the hosting panel, and I check on the servers, and they're all up and running. There's no billing issues or anything like that. So I'm like, okay, this is kind of weird. I couldn't get to them, so I forced rebooted them, because I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's something going on with the boxes. Maybe it's a hardware issue. Maybe they're just hung up. And I go to issue the force restart command, and it comes back saying unable to communicate with hosts. So I'm like, okay, this is not good at all. And I get on the phone to my hosting company. Now, this all happened. This was at the beginning of the issue. So I call them up, and they're just like, got through pretty quickly, and there's like, we aren't really aware of any major issues. Let me take a look at your boxes and see what's going on here. After a brief pause on hold, I think it was probably like 5 minutes, they're like, okay, well, we're gonna look into this issue, and then we'll give you a call right back, which should have been my first sign that something was not going well. But I'm like, okay, that's fine. And half hour goes by, and I'm sitting there still trying to get in everything, and it's just not letting me in. And I'm like, okay, what the hell is going on? So a half hour later goes by. I still get no call back, because they said they'd call back within a few minutes. And I call back, and this time it's like, we are experiencing longer than average hold times. To continue holding, please stay on the line. And I'm like, what is going on here? So now I know something big was going on, and it wasn't just my server. So it's nothing that I was doing. The servers themselves, the hosting company was having issues. So fine. So I get a hold of someone after probably like 15 or 20 minutes on hold. And they're like, yeah, we've been getting a lot of reported outages and stuff like that with our services. We have no ETA. We're still looking into the issue. We'll let you know as soon as something's found. So I'm like, okay, whatever. This was back when I did late night streams, so this was like probably like 2, 3 in the morning. So I had to send a few messages to Max saying, hey, I know you're asleep. It's like, although technically he would have been waking up in a few hours anyways, but I'm just like, hey, I know it's super early for you, but when you wake up, just so you know what's going on, there was an issue with the hosting company. It should be probably resolved by the time you wake up. So I go to bed and I wake up around like 7 or 8 o'clock the next day, and I get downstairs, and Max still hadn't woken up yet, or I think he was out doing something that morning. So I get downstairs just to kind of check everything. And I'm like, okay, so everything's still down. It was weird because, like I said, some people were on the server and had never been disconnected. Our front-end servers were still up. And I'll kind of get into how people were able to stay on the server more in a second. But I noticed that, typically, I think at that time we had probably a few hundred people online, probably 400 or 500 average. And it was down to about like 120. And it was one of those things that it just kept slowly dropping and dropping and dropping. And what had been happening was that I called the hosting company again and was like, dude, what the heck's going on? It's been, 6 hours since I last talked to you guys. And they had identified apparently a major issue with one of their primary, I think it was like their network drops, like from the actual communications companies that connect multiple areas. And I think it was like an international line or something like that too. So I still couldn't get into stuff, and it was interesting because only some of their boxes were affected because they've got multiple data centers, multiple lines. And so the data center that was affected hosted a lot of our back-end servers. So the front-end servers, where our Bungies are hosted, were still up, as well as a couple of game servers. So a couple of our game servers were never affected by it. But what had happened was, since all the hubs and most of the other servers were on the affected boxes, whenever you tried to connect, it was try to get you to the hubs, and they were all unreachable, so it wouldn't let you connect. But if you had already been connected to the server, then you would have stayed connected. And that's why it slowly kept going down and down and down. The player count kept kind of slowly dropping over time. And at this point, it had been like, 8 or 10 hours or something like that. And I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. This is so stupid. We need to do something. So then I'm like, okay, well, can we get everything back up? And then I realized that our backups were also in the area that was affected by the outage. So now we've got no backups of our stuff, because I was thinking like, okay, well, what if I just go to another hosting company real quick, push everything there, get it all set back up, redirect it there, and bring things back up. But that's when I realized, okay, we have no backups. We have no database. We have most of the game servers that we can't get to. I'm like, this is not good, because all of our stuff was backed up inside of their environment, so we didn't have access to it. And now I'm kind of like freaking out. Now I'm like thinking like worst case scenario, like, oh god, what happens? What if this stuff doesn't come back up? What are we gonna do? We don't have a database. Like, to me, the database was the biggest thing. Maps and worlds can be reset. They can be, set back up again. But the database that has all the information, all the permissions, all the player files, everything is inaccessible. That's the kind of stuff that you can't really recreate. Like, all of everything that makes up our entire network was basically unreachable. So, after kind of panicking and freaking out, Mac finally gets on. He gets back for the day, and he's like, hey, so I can get into the boxes. And I'm like, wait, what? So I try to connect to it. I'm like, what are you talking about? I can't get into anything. And he goes to connect again. He's like, yeah, I can get into them all. And I'm like, are you serious? How? And apparently he went on their site and found out that the internet lines that connect the data center to Europe, basically where Mac is, were fine, but the ones to the rest of North America were the ones that were down. And I was like, oh my god, that's awesome. So you can actually get in there, grab the files and backups and all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, everything looks good in here. All the stuff is running fine. It's just the internet connection lines for the rest of the stuff are down, so it couldn't get access from my house. So at that point, I started feeling better. I'm like, dude, right now, grab a backup of the database immediately, pull it to your computer. I'm like, worst case scenario, at least we have that. So he does that, and then about like an hour later, I think pretty much everything got brought back up. We did some testing, and everything was back up. Players were starting to come back online. We reset everything just to give it a full reboot, and we were back to normal. But it was just, during that time was so stressful because, like, You know, the hosting company for the first few hours had no idea what was going on. And then past that, they had no ETA as when it would be back up. And the whole thing was just like this nightmare. And I'm just, like I said, I was freaking out because I'm like, oh my God, all the backups are in their network. What if their network's down and we're not going to get our files? And obviously that didn't happen, but it was crazy. It's something that I would never have really thought about up until when that happened. So now, as part of our normal backup routine, obviously we've still got our backups within their environment because, you know, if we have to restore something, it's a lot quicker to have it already on site versus having to wait for a 20 or 50 gigabyte file to upload and restore from there. So we still got those there, but also now we have a secondary backup site completely out of their company that we pull down from daily. That has, I think, probably like a month or 2 months worth of rolling backups, including daily database backups, entire network backups, and everything. And it's because of this event that we realized, okay, well, what if, you know, heaven forbid, something happened where that entire site got destroyed? Maybe they had a giant water pipe burst and it just destroyed all of our hardware, which hosts our servers and backups. You know, what if something like that were to have happened? And we're like, okay, yeah, this is not acceptable. So now it kind of helped strengthen us in the long run. So if any major event did happen, we'd be able to recover. I mean, yeah, it might be up to 24 hours out of sync, but at least we would have it. So that was kind of our biggest outcome from that. But you know, I think that you guys might even remember that day when it happened. I think we even did like a giant coupon. I think we created a coupon called downtime. Just to be, I mean, obviously it wasn't our fault. It's nothing that we did wrong, but we're like, listen, guys, I know the server's been down for, it had been close to probably like 18 hours at that point, and we just wanted to kind of make it up to the community. So we were like, you know, let's just give you guys a code. Here you go. So if you guys actually remember that code, the downtime code, leave a comment below because I'm actually curious how many of you guys remember using that a few months back. But yeah, so that was kind of the story that happened with this. And like I said, every time something like this happens, while at the time it's one of those things where we're kind of freaking out, and it kind of sucks at the time, but realistically, in the long run, it's something that is really going to help us out. Because now we've kind of learned from our mistakes, and instead of being vulnerable to something like this happening again, at least we're more protected. And that's kind of the way some of this stuff goes. You know, sometimes we learn our biggest lessons the hard way. And this was definitely something that we learned. Now, it could have been a lot worse. Like I said, we could have lost data. We could have lost the database. But fortunately, things worked out. But yeah, it was definitely a fun experience, quote unquote fun experience. But so yeah, that was the day that all of our servers went down and we had no backups of anything, and it just kind of left standing there like, oh God, what do we do? So hopefully you guys can learn a little something like this too. If you've got something that's very important, don't ever, just make sure you never, ever, ever only have one copy of it. So like, let's say you're doing your homework and you never hit the save button. Like, you're not going to type 99 pages and then hit file save. You should probably save it every 10 minutes because if you don't know, most programs like to crash. So, I mean, obviously that's just one example, but there's so many things that this could be applied to. But hopefully you guys enjoy this little peek into some of this crazy stuff that goes on behind the scenes. I asked you guys last week what you wanted to see, and this is the topic that won. So I'm going to put a few more ideas out in the community section this week as well. So if you guys want to head over there to vote on it, definitely feel free. You can always leave your own ideas, and you know, if there is one idea that you guys like that someone else puts, make sure to upvote it, and I'll definitely take a look at the top comments because maybe there's something there that I have never really thought of that you guys would want to know about. But anyways, if you had fun, make sure to hit the like button on this video so I know that you liked it. If you didn't, then hit the dislike button. That way I know that you don't like these kinds of things. And yeah, feel free to leave a comment below with what you want to see in the next video. I mean, there's so many topics. I started creating a list of things that I could talk about. So I'm just going to keep plugging those out there to see what you guys want to hear about. And I will see you guys again next time. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, check out mc.performium.net, and I'll see you guys later. Goodbye, everybody. As always, dudes, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and possibly check out one of these other videos here. I think you really might like them. But I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye, everybody.